We're live. We are live, almost on time. Only 7 minutes late. One of these days, one of these streams, we're going to start exactly on time. The time posted on YouTube. We're getting better. We're getting better at finding the right time. 7 minute wait, I think, is just right for the people. Little bit of build up for Mr. Memphis Young, Randy Young. This is the first time we've had you on. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, excited to be here. Not my first time on the network, though. Me and my co-host Jerry, we've been doing some work on Sunday nights with the Dynasty War Zone
Oh
on
yeah,
the
well that's
channel.
why that was. I was like, well, they're gonna be on the network. I gotta have them on the Mind a Mansion show for crying out loud. It's long overdue. So I'm really happy to have you on. It is interesting how a number of shows have been added to the network that are actually not native player profiler shows, but they are at a standard, right? The Undroppables, the Dynasty War Zone, they're at a standard. You can't just buy a mic tomorrow, start a podcast, and think you'll be streaming to our YouTube channel. That's not how it's going to work. Okay, that's not the reality. The reality is that you know your shit. And just look at your whole setup, man. I love it. You got the Bo Jackson in the background. You got lamps. I mean, this is amazing.
It's production value. I told
Hell
my
yeah.
co-host Jerry, we're the 5-year overnight sensation here at playerprofiler.com. You run with the company you keep. I tell my son this. You and I were talking before we hit the record button. I've got a 15-year-old son. I tell him every day, if you hang out with bums and kids that don't do well, that you will be known by that. But if you hang out with good people doing good stuff, you'll be known by that. That's why we're hanging out with you guys. We got to elevate our game. We got to get lamps. We got to get Bo Jackson posters. We got to get sponsors because we're on Player Profiler now. We're not any geek off the street anymore.
No, yeah. It's the high standard that we set is for many years in the podcast studio, deleting random noises and fixing little bits of audio and dropping in sound effects and all the it can be a grind. Sometimes you're up late at night doing it, but you feel like if you just set a standard that over time that the audience will come to appreciate that, and that you'll be more sticky. That it's going to be hard for them. Oh, let me try out another podcast. Oh, let me go see what's over here. Oh, this doesn't sound as good, or this isn't as informative as I'm used to, or these guys don't have the sense of humor. Whatever it is, the production quality. If you set that standard, that high attention to detail, where you're up at night, you're up early in the morning, whether it's on the website, making sure things are laid out in a particular way that might cost more, that might take longer. But it's just the way you want it to look, the way you want it to feel, the way you want it to sound. It takes longer. It certainly creates a decision, a trade-off, an opportunity cost, where it's like, okay, if you want to take all this time doing all these things, you can't do this, right? You can't go fishing with your friends. You can't go do this on the weekend. You're going to have to be in your office. And that's when you say things like that to me, that is huge, because that is a payoff of years of investment and trade-offs.
I bet you can't tell me the latest happenings on like the latest series. Like when you're with your friends, like I know Memorial Day was a couple of days ago. You're at the pool. People are probably talking about a series. I've heard of Yellowstone. I have no idea what that is, because if I'm not doing podcast, I'm editing podcast. If I'm not editing podcast, I'm doing research for the next podcast. And you're right, that is the trade-off. But that's the standard, right? That's why they tune into the Mind a Mansion. That's why they tune into Player Profiler YouTube in general, because there's a standard of good stuff. So that's what we do, man. And that's what you've inspired us to do more of.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, I was just Memorial Day weekend with my friends, and they had just finished binging the latest season of Succession. And I love Succession, but I can pick up a half an episode here, a half an episode there when I can. And like the season finishes, these guys have already watched it all, and I haven't even started it yet. And I'm like, no, we're not talking about it. We can sit down. You want to rewatch the first episode of the last season? Let's go do that. And we did that. That was great. And they're like, you don't understand. This is such a great season. I'm like, I'm going to understand it. On my timeline, I am going to understand it. It's just not right now. Please don't shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about it.
That is the number one show that I've wanted to start and just haven't had time. It's on the list. It's on the list to start Succession. I know HBO's had incredible shows, Sopranos and, so many others. So
their hit rate is so much higher
The Wire
than any other streaming service. Even like the newer shows, right? They have talk about a high brand standard. When a show drops on HBO, you assume it's good. When a new show drops on Netflix, I assume it's bad.
That never a truer statement was the issue, because you'll even give the bad ones on HBO a season, maybe a season and a half. Like White Lotus was good. I've heard White Lotus was really good. I like a lot of the people in that show. I'm more of like Disney's another one. Like I'm a Marvel nerd, that's self-admitted. So I love Samuel L. Jackson. He's got a series coming up, but I'm going to literally have to wait, like The Mandalorian, until all of them are out. And I'm going to lock myself in a room for like 6 hours or whatever the hell and get caught up. But yeah, man, there's a lot of great stuff out there. I just don't happen to see a lot of it. I'm the worst guy at a pool party or at a barbecue to say, hey, have you seen? I'm going to be like, no. If it's not my son playing baseball or fantasy football draft sheets, then the answer is no.
That's right. So fantasy football is what we're here to talk about today, and Dynasty specifically with the man from the Dynasty War Zone. So I'll bring you in proper here. You ready?
Oh, absolutely.
We should find the right music for this. What would be the right music for this? Where's my I don't know if I can.
You have the Benny Hill music?
I gotta find the right. See, the thing is, it's about finding the right cadence, the right musical choice can really elevate a segment of a show. It's important. It's an important thing to do it right. We got to figure it out. We got to figure out what music we're going to play here. Oh, yeah. Something's coming in. Something. Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program. From the Dynasty War Zone off his chopper. His name's Randy, but we call him Memphis. That's right, Memphis Young from the Dynasty War Zone. All things Dynasty today on the Mind of Mansion program. Memphis Young, talk to me.
That's the best intro in podcasting. You can keep Joe Rogan. You can keep them all. That is the intro. Like, hey, Memphis, pick one. That's the one. I feel like a fighter. You feel like you're Bruce Buffer. You're bringing me in. I'm squaring off against Chuck Liddell. I'm going to get punched in the face, but at least I felt cool during an amazing intro.
Felt good. Felt great. We have to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, though no one really wants to talk about that team. They're on track to have the number 1 pick and perhaps the number 2 pick, which would be fascinating. I really hope that happens. Just more egg on the face of the Houston Texans. They predictably moved on from DeAndre Hopkins, as they had to do. He didn't make any sense on their team. Imagine DeAndre Hopkins helping you win a game that would have cost you Caleb Williams. That would have been a tragedy. So they move on. They release him. They couldn't trade him. Now they have 1 year left of Marquise Brown. They have Rondale Moore for a couple more years on his rookie deal. They've got Michael Wilson, 3rd-round pick. Perfect sort of profile of a versatile playmaker in the NFL. And Trey McBride at tight end. It's not going to be Zach Ertz for the foreseeable future. How does the Hopkins release affect the dynasty value of those pieces in Arizona?
Well, the two guys for me are Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. But real quick, you said something there. I just thought, how many times does Arizona have to pick Houston's pocket? They literally stole DeAndre Hopkins from them a few years ago for like a ham sandwich and a banana. And now they stole their 2024 first round NFL pick. It feels like there should be an FBI investigation into their relationship with Houston, but I digress.
Well, what about J.J. Watt?
I thought he was a free agent, maybe, but yeah, it's
Didn't
like
they get JJ? But they got the last few years of JJ Watt. They squeezed a little bit what was left of the JJ Watt.
They were doing the little graphics, the player to have like the most recent 10-sack season, and JJ Watt was that person for both Houston and for Arizona. So yeah, they clearly got the value there, but. Talking about this offense, so for me, Pittsburgh's been my buy on offense this dynasty offseason. I said this back in January because you got all these young guys. You got Pickett going into year 2. You got Najee year 3, Freiermuth, Pickens, Johnson, all these guys. This is going to be next year's buy on offense, and we can get a year ahead right now because Zach Ertz, this is one I stole from you, by the way. Zach Ertz, because you always talk about the PUP list and ACLs. Zach Ertz is 33 years old. He tore his ACL and his MCL in week 10. That's November, guys. He's 33. We're concerned about Javonte. We're concerned about Breece. They're in their early 20s. This dude's in his mid-30s. And Trey McBride was a 98th percentile dominator at the college rating. Huge. He's an 89th percentile speed score guy. And he's currently the tight end 18. But he's tied to Kyler Murray. And in a year, to your point, could be tied to Caleb Williams. So for me, this is a bad team. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. They have the worst win total per Vegas. So for me, if I can get Trey McBride at tight end, 18 prices in a startup, I'm in. What are your thoughts on McBride? We'll talk about Wilson in a second because I kind of have this one figured out about you.
Well, Trey McBride, he ran a 4.56 at his pro day, which for a guy that's 245 pounds is moving, right? He's moving. And he and Dulcich should have a similar ADP. And
don't you feel like those guys are getting lost in all this rookie sauce right now with the Laportas and the Musgraves? It's like, what are we doing, guys?
It's crazy. Look, I love Dulcich and I love McBride because you get the rookie year out of the way, right? And both of these guys are not necessarily going to be mega producers this year. The offense in Arizona is going to be bottom 5. There are other pieces in Arizona that are going to command targets, especially Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore. So it's not like Trey McBride's going to be this monster. I don't see it. But a year out, 2024, right? You get good production in 2023. We're not saying no production. Good production in 2023 from McBride. Good production from Dulcich in 2023. And then everything clears out. Marquise Brown, free agent. Jerry Jeudy, gone in Denver. Cortland Sutton, likely gone. Like the whole receiver room clears out in Denver, which is why I prefer Dulcich, but it's close. And then McBride is just, like I said, teed up to play the whole season. If Ertz comes back, it will be in December. And then even then, if he comes back in December, I'm going to be impressed. That it took, it took a full year, but he's in his 30s. It was multiple ligament tears where he goes in for the surgery, has to rehab, then go back in for another surgery, and then rehab that.
And if for some reason he has a miraculous recovery, wouldn't you take like a 5th-round pick or a 6th-round pick for him from a contender who maybe needs a tight end at the trade deadline? If for some reason he's healthy around October, Arizona is quietly quitting right now on the season. They're going to get all these young guys reps. They're going to get Michael Wilson. I want to talk about him in just a second. They're going to give all these guys reps. And Kyler Murray's going to throw more than ever because he's coming off of his own ACL. He's going to stay in the pocket. They're going to be behind. I'll take garbage time production. We can see what they can do. And you can get him cheap. He's still taxi squad eligible in a lot of leagues. You can put him on that taxi for a year. Maybe you've got an Evan Ingram or something, and you're grooming your next tight end coming down the back. But I want to talk more about Michael Wilson. What are your thoughts on Michael Wilson?
Well, just to be clear with McBride, we could be looking up at this time next year, and he's going ahead of Laporta. No one would be surprised. Similar draft capital, both second rounders, similar size, similar athletic profiles. It's just that McBride was a total mega. When you talk about a 99th percentile dominator rating, that's 1,100 yards and a 34% target share. That year at Colorado State for Trey McBride in 2021, it's just worth reminding people what he did. 134 targets. It's just worth reminding people that he's in that class with the Laportas and the Michael Mayers and the Dalton Kincaids. So that's just an important reminder for everybody.
To be that dominant when you're the man. If you're a defensive coordinator at Colorado and you're playing Colorado State, who are you trying to take out? It's Trey McBride. And he still had a 98th percentile college dominator. So smaller school than Mayer. We'll talk about Mayer, I'm sure, at some point. But
yeah,
I
mean, Mayer is
that's your
sexy
guy.
He's a sexy. That's another level of sex appeal. That's a level of sort of. He has the age-adjusted dominance that Trey McBride doesn't, so that's what he's bringing to the table, and a little bit earlier capital, beginning of the second round as opposed to end of the second round. So certainly Mayer, I would expect Mayer. The only issue is they're going to be on equally putrid offenses. It's just that Mayer's going to have more target competition than McBride, so it's very conceivable McBride outproduces Mayer this year. And like you said, it's just they're all in the mix, right? Dulcich, Mayer, McBride, Laporta. They could easily all be in the mix around similar ADP and startups next year. And it's also possible that Dalton Kincaid's below all of them. That's just something that could happen. Remember, Kincaid and McBride went to programs in the same conference, right? We're talking about Colorado State versus Utah. Like, what's the big difference, right?
Not a whole lot.
Is there a difference? I mean,
not really. And like, we're going to talk about Kincaid. I'm sure that's our buddy Theo's guy. But at cost, why wouldn't I want Trey McBride? Again, he's the tight end 18 per player profiler's dynasty rankings. You guys should be checking those out. But he's a steal. He's a literal steal. And we play in a lot of tight end.
Because he goes later than that in startups.
100%. His startup ADP was 150. That's like the 13th round. That's the 12th, 13th round. He's literally free in startups right now. And he's literally free in tight end premium. Throw him on the back end of your roster. And you may be a year away. I think your points are very well stated. But what do you think his dynasty value does next year if Arizona does happen to wind up with Caleb Williams? It goes to the moon.
It's going up. It's going up. He could pass all these guys. He could pass Dulcich. He could pass all these guys. It's very possible. I don't know if he passes Mayer. I think Mayer is going to do well no matter what happens. I think that he is the bust-proof tight end. We'll see, though, man. Trey McBride's teed up. There's just a bunch of shrimps, right? Other than Michael Wilson, it's guys that are 5'9" and 170 pounds in Arizona. That's another reason why I love Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson is hard for me because I've been burned so often by third-round wide receivers and rookie drafts that it's making me pause in the last month drafting Michael Wilson. I've done it, right? I've done it. I've gone Evan Hull sometimes. I've gone Michael Wilson sometimes based on need. Those have been the two guys I've been circling in the third round. And to get me over that, to get me over all that damage that's been done to my psyche with these third-round wide receivers, you got to be pretty special. Watching him dominate the drills at the Senior Bowl, watching him have the quickest feet, seeing how big he is relative to other receivers and then how athletic he is, because I was wondering, maybe, Dontavian Wicks, maybe some of these receivers will test well. No, they're running 4.6s. Michael Wilson is athletic. Michael Wilson did get the third-round capital. The most clear and obvious third-round pick I've ever seen in the NFL draft was Michael Wilson. He was going third round from the beginning, and then we knew it, and then he went exactly third round, and it was perfect. And we all knew that Hopkins was gone, But the funny thing is, it was a foregone conclusion Hopkins wouldn't be in Arizona, and yet still you're seeing this ADP surge for Michael Wilson in rookie drafts. And so it's not going to be a third-round pick anymore. You're not going to have that dilemma. Now he's really a second-round pick. The reason why he was such a smash in the third round and why I should have been loading up as much as I could was he was never really supposed to go in the third round anyway. He really was a late second-rounder in rookie drafts. That's where he should have been going based on the class, based on the other options that are available. Once Jaden Reed's off the board, once of course the Marvin Mims of the world. I mean, Marvin Mims, same argument you're making for Dulcich. Marvin Mims in 2024. I was so happy to get him in a productive struggle roster where I am gunning for 2024. Marvin Mims, given how the contracts are set up to all clear out in 2024 in Denver, oh my God. But it should have been closer all along with Wilson and those other guys.
Well, we all have a type. Like my type is, I've had good success with Cooper Kupp and Terry McLaurin. Now, what do Cooper Kupp and Terry McLaurin have in common with Michael Wilson? It's a good question.
Third round picks.
Third round picks, actual NFL picks, and they did really well at the Senior Bowl. I'm not ready to quite go to say Michael Wilson is my this year's Terry McLaurin. Cooper Kupp was my number one. When I started doing content in 2017, Cooper Kupp was my number one hit. I'm like, guys, you got to walk away with Cooper Kupp from this draft. I loved Cooper Kupp.
Where was he going in drafts that year?
Third round. In super and this is how you build equity on your dynasty. This is how you build equity on your dynasty rosters. You hit on the Trey McBrides, you hit on the Michael Wilsons in the third round, because when they hit, if they hit, you're going to 10x your profitability. Get those first, second round running backs, and then look for this corollary. You look for the guy who dominates at the Senior Bowl, goes in the third round of the NFL draft, and has the athleticism. Oh, and one little thing, and I've always liked smart people. It's just one of those things. He went to Stanford. They don't let dummies into Stanford.
That's right.
So you add all that up. He's
Look
a
how
little
smart
bit older.
Cooper Kupp is. Remember diagnosing the play and
Terry McLaurin
and just off the dome, rapid fire. Where's the coverage? Oh, how am I going to adjust my route at the top of the stem? Just bing, 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 bing. Michael Wilson, by the way, only played in 14 games the last 3 years. That's how you find value. What happened to this player? Was there injuries? Yes. Was there coaching changes? Was there quarterback changes? Did the offensive line die? What happened? Right? You go back, the guy put up close to 800 yards as a freshman at Stanford with a 67% catch rate, 84 targets as a freshman. That's impressive for Michael Wilson. That was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, this guy, yes, he's older now, but he's been through some things, and clearly he's taking great care of his body. The guy's in immaculate shape. These injuries were likely random, not due to the fact that this guy's not working hard. He's clearly working hard at the Senior Bowl.
The research I did, it was a foot injury, and he hurt it the tail end of his sophomore year, and it was like a Liz Frank, if I remember correctly, that bled into his junior year. And so he's come back from that, and that's baked into his NFL draft capital. It's baked into his ADP. So for me, hopefully it's done. It never comes back, but I don't mind the value, like So in Superflex tight end premium, when drafts first kicked off, like right after the NFL draft, I was getting him at the early fourth, late third. And now in my most recent draft, he went 302. So he's jumped a full round of ADP in Superflex tight end premium. And that's kind of where I get a little nervous. There might be some guys I'm willing to take over him given the format, but he's still got so much upside. And he's going to get the reps.
What about Rondale Moore?
I mean, could you imagine if we put Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch and Marquise Brown and wait a minute, they all are on the same team. Is Jonathan Gannon, Willy Wonka? Are these the Oompa Loompas? Get out of here, man. Give me the guy who's a true. And if you watch Kyler Murray play, he's not like a dunk it over the middle kind of guy. He's not afraid to fire the ball to the boundary. Why? He probably's having a tough time seeing over the line. Hey, I can see Michael Wilson on the boundary on the outside. Let me throw it to him. Let me throw it to him as opposed to these little guys that I can't see because they're as little as I am. I can't see over the line. I can't see them through the line. Let me push it over here. So no,
you're just talking about geometry. I've never thought about the geometry of Kyler
triangle.
Murray not being able to see Rondale Moore.
At least not on like short drag routes, little intermediate routes like that. No, if he's running like his like 4.38 40 or whatever it is down the seam, that's different. But if you can't see him, you can't throw him. But if you can always see 6'1" on the boundary, Michael Wilson on the outside. Who was the guy last year? I forget his name. He had some success. A.J. Brown. The outside wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, have had the success in this offense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Rondale Moore is going to be around next year. So he's going to be the one guy that sticks around. It's going to be him. It's going to be Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. Those will be the main receivers. We'll see what happens with Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch actually a value, deeper leagues where you're starting a lot of wide receivers. Now Greg Dortch is technically, for the moment, the number 3 receiver. Michael Wilson will quickly overtake him. I think we know that. There's something called the Greg Dortch corollary, in that no matter how dominant you were in college, if you're super small and you're not athletic enough, there's just no way you can win against NFL defenders no matter how well you did the thing, your gimmick in college just doesn't translate to the NFL. Even those that had the speed, like Tavon Austin, they couldn't translate the gimmick. Rondale Moore's yards per reception in college, 9.4. That was second percentile. So his around the line of scrimmage gimmick is not number 1 receiver, even fantasy WR2 material. But I think he'll be a wide receiver 3 next year with the quarterback upgrade that we're expecting. But if they're going to spend, the first overall pick on a quarterback, they're going to come right back to wide receiver in the second round, right? So I'm expecting Arizona to go wide receiver with like the first, second, third, fourth pick of the second round. That's my early expectation for them to just go, Burrow Chase. They're going to want to do something like that. It makes sense. So even though we're like, oh, well, Rondale Moore, he's eventually going to be, pseudo featured in Arizona. Not so fast. And it's a guy who was dominant at an early age and did have the speed, ran a 4.32 at his pro day, but just not versatile enough in the NFL to be someone that you're ever starting in fantasy with confidence. The DeAndre Hopkins release always made sense. The Dalvin Cook release was always something I heard about, and I fully expected to happen just because so many people were assuming it would happen, and it was a foregone conclusion. But it was the Vikings. I'm like, the Vikings have Kirk Cousins. They're trying to go for the win this year. It's a very, very winnable division now without Aaron Rodgers. What's the hurry to move on from Dalvin Cook? I never really understood the logic. I just knew it was in the news. And it was something that fantasy gamers were expecting, and that's why Alexander Mattison was surging. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to this point, Dalvin Cook hasn't moved anywhere.
No, sir. He is still a Minnesota Viking. Now, the next 48 hours, as you and I record this, will be the big determiner because he's a post-June 1 cut.
Right.
Now, I guess they could have already cut him and, made the denotation that, hey, yep, you know what? It's not going to be until June 2nd or whatever it is. But I've heard rumors of a reworked contract. But as of today, no, he is still a Minnesota Viking.
So Madison, Chandler, we have the other McBride, Dwayne McBride. How do you think that the backfield will shake out behind Cook?
Well, clearly it's Madison. These coaches love veterans. They just can't help themselves. And they re-signed him for a reason. They clearly like him. If, for some reason, Dalvin Cook goes, Madison will get his opportunity, maybe like a Kareem Hunt type role in Cleveland that he had, a couple of years ago and then eventually lost. Ty Chandler, I'm not really into him. I love him as an athlete, but he's more of a special team guy. He played 51% of the special team snaps last year versus like 12 actual snaps. So I don't know that he's really the guy. The guy that I want's Dwayne McBride. I love Dwayne McBride. Are you kidding me? 3,100 yards in college in 2 seasons and 32 touchdowns. And the reason why he went in the 7th round was I was listening to a former NFL scout on a podcast, and he was like, he had a little knucklehead to him. He had some immaturity issues to him. But Minnesota said, we are not leaving this draft without getting Dwayne McBride. So they used a 7th round pick. They didn't want to go after him in undrafted free agency, and they got their guy. He's the one to keep your eye on. So if I were keep, trade, cut, I'm keeping McBride, I'm cutting Chandler, and I'm trading Madison, because unless you're doing a recent startup, this is your chance to cash out. This is your chance to cash out on Alexander Madison. You got him cheap. You got him in the late rounds of a startup, and now is your chance. I'm not a big Alexander Madison guy. So that's kind of how. What are your thoughts? I know you're a McBride guy.
Yeah, Madison's not explosive for me. I mean, he's not explosive. He doesn't make a difference in the passing game. He's a guy. He's always been a guy. He was a guy at Boise State. I don't understand the fascination with him. He's a sell-high candidate right now, and that's it. That's it. I would like to see Ty Chandler in a slasher role, getting 8 carries a game, and see what he can do. I think that'd be a good experiment to see how they do with that. He does have the year on McBride, so they could ultimately try to practice squad McBride. I don't think they will. They also have Nwangu there for special teams. So now all of a sudden, when you think about how the math's going to work, Ty Chandler could get cut and picked up somewhere else, and then he has a bigger role somewhere else. Ty Chandler goes to the Chargers, something like that. Then he has a clear path to the number 2 job. I want to draft profiles of running backs with size, speed, receiving skills, and if it just doesn't shake out the way the chairs are arranged when the music stops for Ty Chandler in Minnesota, that's okay. You can move on, go somewhere else. They like McBride. McBride is a one of the top runners in this class, and could have gone 4th round, right? That classic guy that no one's ever heard of from a small school, but the fantasy guys do him, and he goes 4th, 5th round. Had he not had the knucklehead factor, I think that's what would have happened. I mean, Kadarius Toney had a knucklehead factor, and he was drafted in the 1st round, and he wasn't even good at the Senior Bowl. He's never been good. If you think Alexander Madison is a sell-high candidate, do you also think that Kadarius Toney is a sell-high candidate, I'm guessing?
Absolutely. Did we learn nothing from Nate Liss's biggest dynasty mistake? Did that go in vain? Have we learned nothing from the Clyde Edwards-Helaire corollary that being adjacent to greatness does not equal greatness? Listen, I'm big on
greatness adjacency.
Yeah, you can't be greatness adjacent. I mean, here's my thing. It's like I'm big on messaging, and the Chiefs are telling us a story. Hey, we brought in Kadarius Toney, and we drafted Rashee Rice, and we drafted Sky Moore, but we're also in on DeAndre Hopkins at 30, 31 years old. What's that tell you? That Andy Reid and Brett Veach and Patrick Mahomes got in a room and said, our wide receivers, we've not really replaced the guy that was Tyreek Hill. So why the hell would that be Kadarius Toney? He's missed 19 of the 34 possible games in his career. He's a hamstring waiting to happen. If you want to go with the existing guys, I'll just take Sky Moore because he's the cheapest, and not any of the wide receivers currently on the roster are guaranteed to break out. They're all about the same, so give me the cheapest option. But yeah, I don't get the love for – I didn't get it when he went in the 1st round years ago. You know, people were teaching him how to run routes at the Senior Bowl. It's like, no, this is how you do that. It's like – I don't know. It was befuddling. It was a Gettleman move, big Dave Gettleman move.
Yeah,
so for me, they're not satisfied with this wide receiver room, so I'm not going to reach for a Kadarius Toney in any form or fashion.
Sky Moore was a rookie last year. He's getting acclimated to the league from, Western Michigan. It just makes sense that he was a year away. That you just drop a guy from Western Michigan who came out early onto the championship roster. He's not going to be starting. He's not going to be getting all the reps. He's not going to be running all the routes, you think? All I know is the guy had over 1,200 yards in college in his final year. That was his third year, right? He came out early, right? 45% dominator rating. I like him. I don't see why that I'm walking away after 1 year, given that, again, very young player from a small school, comes out, struggles, but also is making some big plays and some big moments. He was getting what, a 45% snap share most weeks. What's wrong with that? It was growing. He was getting better. He was going from like a 20% snap share, 25% snap share, and 32% snap share. So he was improving throughout the year. He didn't have any big boom weeks, right? He had what he cap out at like a 63 receiving yards one game. Okay, that's fine. But it wasn't like he wasn't out there. It wasn't like he was a total dud. They designed some plays for him. I'm interested, right? I'm interested. He was drafted in a similar draft spot to Rashee Rice. So I think that it would be interesting just to draft those two guys in a startup, but definitely not Kadarius Toney. But every year they're just going to keep throwing darts. They're going to keep throwing darts. Eventually they're going to hit on one of these second rounders. It could be Rice. It could be more. 1 year does not doom a guy to, anonymity. That's not, no. I love that you mentioned Sky Moore. Tank Bigsby is rising right now because the coaches come out. They say, hey, we don't think that Travis Etienne will ever get a 70% opportunity share again. It was way too many carries. That's not the player he is. We drafted Bigsby in round 3 for a reason. What do you think of Bigsby?
I was not super impressed coming into the rookie evaluation process. I had a lot of guests on the show that talked about him. He's very in between. So here's my thing. It's not so much about Bigsby. I don't know why he's rising. I think people are crazy. I think we're grasping at June and late May straws right now just to kind of fill our days with dynasty content. So I'm not in a hurry to grab him. But it's just the truth, man. It gets weird. Dude, how long have you been doing dynasty? Forever, right?
Yeah.
Shit gets weird in May and June.
I mean, here's the thing. The guys always ask me when these things happen, they're like, have you seen all the steam on Bigsby? What do you want to do with Bigsby? I'm like, what do you mean what do I want to do with Bigsby? We have Bigsby where we have Bigsby. Bigsby's not going anywhere. What do you think's going to happen? Explain what you think is going to happen. How many times have we seen this, right? We have Bigsby in the zone with the guys that he's comparable to, like Damian Harris and Tyler Algier. What? Right? No, we're not. Maybe we moved down Travis Etienne because that's not a great sign, but it's not like we move up Bigsby because guess what happens? Who's in there on third downs? Oh, it's JaMychal Hasty, right? So we all
Ernest Johnston.
Right. We all lose. There's no guarantee that it's all just going to, all the opportunities flow to the next guy. That's the thing that I really appreciate having Billy and Dario on the team is because they are so focused on this coming season, they keep you in check because you could start to spin out of control. The dynasty gamer is going to be like, oh, well, it's going to be Bigsby and Etienne, and if it's going to be less Etienne, that just means more Bigsby. And then you push him up the rankings, and you're reaching for him, you're trading up for him, all these things. Billy and Dario are like, whoa. That's not exactly how it's going to work out. That doesn't necessarily mean Bigsby's now fantasy relevant. You actually going to start him? At what point are you starting Bigsby? And even if Etienne gets hurt, and then what happens? It becomes Bigsby as the Thunder and Hasty as the Lightning. Then where are we at? And you run these thought experiments, especially with people that are focused on 2023, and it helps you rebalance your expectations of players in Dynasty.
And you nailed it. It's like, what I find weird about the ETN truthers is that they're the same people that will tell you Kenneth Walker got nerfed by Zach Charbonnet, but have zero concern to Tank Bigsby. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that this guy getting drafted in this situation hurts the lead dog, but this one doesn't. I don't want any Bigsby. I don't have, but like maybe one Bigsby. I've done 27 rookie drafts to date. I've got one more left. Hallelujah. But I don't plan on leaving with a lot of Bigsby because I don't ever think I'm going to be super comfortable because, like, I still set a lot of lineups. I think most of our dynasty leagues do. And are you going to be comfortable on Sunday morning at like 12 p.m. Eastern time hitting the submit button with Tank Bigsby in the lineup? I'm not excited by
I
those
wouldn't even feel
prospects.
comfortable hitting the submit button with Zach Charbonnet.
Exactly. You said it right there.
Now, I'm assuming that because they were both third-round picks, one guy is they're clear backup running backs. But Tajay Spears, he's a lot more interesting than Ty. Like, compare the intrigue factor of Tank Bigsby versus Tajay Spears.
Well, there's not much of a factor. It's like it's clearly Spears. Why would it not be Spears? Now Spears has taken me on a roller coaster of emotions. He beat USC in the bowl. He caught a bajillion passes. All of a sudden he's cruising way up dynasty draft boards, and then all of a sudden he's crashed back down. I'm in Superflex tight end premium. I can do a better job of referencing one QB for the one QB dynasty gamer out there, but he's going after Tank Bigsby right now, and you're going to have to tell me why. You're either better than,
No,
different
what?
than, or the yes. And in the leagues that I'm going in, that I'm seeing him go after Bigsby right now. It's absurd. And Derrick Henry's a pending free agent, so if he has a good rookie season, he could maybe latch on to this for a season. Maybe they trade Derrick Henry at the trade deadline. We're going to see more trades than we've ever seen in the NFL as these younger GMs take over teams. And like, if Tennessee's not doing well,
that's smart. I didn't really. Yes, that's a great call. There's been GM turnover.
The younger guys. It's not the stodgy old 75-year-old smoking cigars and a shitty plaid jacket. It's younger, hip, Les Snead. Hey, we're going to make moves. We're going to, it's Rand Carthon in Tennessee. Hey, I'm getting this guy out of here. He's not going to help me do anything in 2023. Maybe I can get a fourth-round pick from Buffalo. Maybe I can get a third-round pick from the LA Chargers because they want to compete. They're renting him. They're going to treat him like they're Von Miller. Remember a few years ago, the Rams rented for a second and a third. They rented Von Miller to win a Super Bowl. Who's to say that a team won't do that for Derrick Henry? And if and when that happens, because he's a free agent next year, Tajay Spears could slide right into that seat with a young Traylon Burks, potentially Will Levis, Kyle Phillips. All these young guys, the head coach, the GM could say, let's see what we got with the young dudes. Let's see what we got going into 24. And Tajay Spears has a much clearer runway to fantasy relevance this year and going forward than Tank Bigsby.
And then next year, what are they going to do? They could easily bring in a Dante Foreman, Rashad Penny type guy just to eat carries between the 20s and keep Spears fresh and make sure he's healthy. That's the ideal. That's the ideal is you get Spears like 50% of the opportunities and you get a grinder back taking 30, and then you mix, the other 20 get mixed between, receivers and the quarterback and, third running back, whoever, doesn't matter. That's the move. That's the move. If you have a guy that's an elite receiver out of the backfield getting a 50% opportunity share, that's a path to an RB1 in fantasy. That's the beauty of Tajay Spears. So I feel like I, in a startup, recently double-tapped Roschon Johnson, Tajay Spears, and it felt really good because I'm like, well, next year, these guys could be in the conversation for RB1s, both of them. It's very good. And I also don't see them investing this capital in Spears and then going right back to the well next year at running back, just like I feel like the Bears will have Khalil Herbert under contract next year. They did use valuable capital. Fourth-round pick is valuable. Early fourth-round pick is a valuable pick on Roschon Johnson. The odds that they move on from him next year by going even earlier in the draft at running back, less than 50%. I mean, think about what Houston, right? Houston did not draft a running back. They didn't draft a single. It's not like Houston didn't draft a running back in day 1 or 2. They didn't draft a running back, period. So now that they didn't draft a running back, period, do you believe that Dameon Pierce is ultra safe?
I do not. I feel like he's safe for this year. I do think Devin Singletary will be a pain in his ass this year because he can do very similar roles. But I think guys like Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco, and all those low draft capital guys are 1 year away from the running back free agent tsunami. Let me just tell you some potential free agents in 2024.
Hit me.
Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift.
I was waiting for Swift. I knew Swift was on there because I have so much Gainwell.
There is a tsunami of running backs that are not only going to adjust their dynasty value, but are going to adjust a lot of dynasty values throughout the NFL. And we're going to talk about like some startup strategies later. Right now, I would be very careful about over investing at the running back position. You should be building around these young wide receivers. You can always add a fifth round, a sixth round. You can trade for a guy, in season to kind of help fill out your running back room. Building around the running back position is going to get very scary very quickly. And so I like Dameon Pierce for this year. I think he'll be fine. But where we go a year from now, especially if Houston does well, if CJ Stroud takes a step, you got Mechie back, you've got Nico Collins, you brought in Dalton Schultz, all of a sudden you may want to go add a Saquon Barkley. You may have the money to go add a Tony Pollard, just pull him over from Dallas to Houston. And then all of a sudden, a guy like Dameon Pierce has got headaches. So I think he's safe for this year. And like if you're not contending or maybe your contending window slows down, he's the perfect guy to pull the ripcord on at your league's trade deadline if your league has one.
You, I think, inadvertently made a subtle case for Kenneth Walker in that so many running backs are at risk of competition in the draft. Why not get it over with this year with an inferior player drafted later than you were in the draft, and now you've put your team in a position where they're much less likely to sign any running back in free agency in 2024?
You ever done anything to prevent yourself from doing something stupid? I have. Like you put like money like in a savings account with no online access because you don't want to touch it, right? That is Zach Charbonnet. Pete Carroll's like, I know me. And I do dumb things sometimes. So I'll want to go get Saquon Barkley next year. But if I draft Zach Charbonnet with a second now, I'll feel less tempted in 12 months to go out and add Austin Eckler. I'll feel less tempted to add Derrick Henry because I'll be very content with Kenneth Walker to Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker is a better pass catching version of Nick Chubb. And Zach Charbonnet is an inferior running version of Kareem Hunt. Will he have some standalone value at times? Absolutely. Will he be like an RB3-4 in this season? Yes, he will. But everybody's seeing this backwards. Zach Charbonnet is actually you used the term once before, the meat shield. He is the unintentional meat shield that is insulating the value of Kenneth Walker.
Would you say that Rachaad White and Dameon Pierce are about equal in terms of how safe they are, or that one is even safer than the other?
Oh, I love Rachaad White this year. I love because, not only is his situation, but so much about him and his athleticism relates to David Johnson. That's his best comparable on Player Profiler. This guy's going to have the entire 2023 season to himself. Look at that depth chart. Keyshawn Vaughn, he's not very good. I kind of like Sean Tucker. I've got some interest in. He's fascinating in a weird, like, you should know better, but you still, it's like the stove's hot, but I'm going to touch it anyway sort of way with
He's
Sean
a
Tucker.
slasher, man. Like we talked about, Ty Chandler, these kind of guys, they're interesting.
But we talked about Tampa Bay. We talked about Arizona's quiet quitting. What the hell do you think Tampa Bay's? Did you see the passes from Baker? They're quiet quitting. They're trying to get Caleb Williams. They're trying to get Drake May. So why in the hell would they bring in one of these dusty veterans when they let go of a dusty veteran? They let go of Dusty Leonard Fournette. They brought in Sean Tucker. They kept Keyshawn Vaughn. There's another running back on that depth chart that no one cares about. If Rachaad White stays healthy, he's going to get a 70 to 75% snap share. He's probably going to get 100 to 110 targets. What's not to like?
I love it.
What's not to like?
Thank you.
Because
Memphis.
of the talent at the other positions on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like you got Tristan Wirfs, you've got Antonio Winfield Jr., you've got Chris Godwin, you've got Mike Evans, you've got all of these other guys that you still have to pay. It's not like they have, it's a salary cap bonanza. you still wouldn't bring in a Dusty Ash running back. Maybe you bring in another rookie from the 24 class. But no, Rachaad White is safe, not only this year, but if he produces this year, he could have that 3-year window we all want to build within. That's my case for Rachaad White right now.
Okay, so we talked about Bigsby and Spears. Spears has 50% more lifetime value on our dynasty rankings than Bigsby, okay? And Rachaad White has 50% more lifetime value than Dameon Pierce. Now I have 10 burning questions, 10 more questions, 10 burning questions for Memphis Young after this. You know, people always ask me, hey, what is the World Series of fantasy or the Super Bowl of fantasy football? And it's easy. It's the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It's a $6 million prize pool. And they've had their Never Too Early Best Ball leagues cranking since February. So the FFPC is the answer to so many questions. Hey, where's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC. That's why we partner with them. If you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, seasonal, best ball, dynasty, go to the FFPC. And don't forget, promo code Underworld to get you $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team, no matter what team it is, no matter what format it is, at the FFPC. Go do it. 10 burning questions. Oh, they're burning. They're burning. I'm so ready. What the hell is going to happen to Davante Adams?
I have no idea, but your best chance to get rid of him is this year. Period. I have no idea. No, he's quarterback proof, right? You remember DeAndre Hopkins years ago with Tom Savage? He's that level of good.
Tom Savage corollary.
There you go. He's going to be bulletproof. You know, wouldn't it be nice if they had like a new minority owner in Las Vegas who maybe played some quarterback and they could get him to anyway? But I think he's going to be fine.
Can he play? Can Brady play if he owns the team? That's got to be allowed, right?
I know you can't be the coach. I know if that was the case, Jerry Jones would be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I know there are rules against, people with ownership stake in the team. I know there's rules against coaching. I don't know. Maybe he'd sell it to like Giselle or something and come back and play.
I don't know why he can't be an owner player. That seems like it should be allowed.
I don't know if they're trying to avoid the Pete Rose manager-player corollary where you're betting on games. Not that Tom would do that. I'm not putting that evil on Tom in Las Vegas. But I think there's like some kind of conflict of interest. It's got to be.
It seems like there might be, but I just want it to happen so bad. I just feel like beyond Adams, it's going to drag down Jacoby Myers, the potential quarterback situation. I think that this is one of those things where someone found the clause in the contract around Jimmy Garoppolo and the physical, and he hasn't passed it yet. And now there's speculation. Oh, but what if? Technically. It doesn't matter. Even if he fails the physical, they can't cut him. They don't have anyone else. They're going to ride him. They're not going to go with Aiden O'Connell. They might. I mean, they might. Like, I shouldn't say they won't. They might. Aiden O'Connell has a Davis Mills vibe to him. I like Aiden O'Connell very late in Superflex for that reason. But, I mean, I haven't heard of a setback with the foot. I know that these feet they get blood flow last, right? They get the last blood. So it takes the longest to heal the feet. I get it. But they are going to heal. He is going to eventually have a working fucking foot, and he's going to be out there, right? I really need him to be out there because I've had Jacoby Myers rostered forever, and now I'm loading up on all this Michael Mayer, and I'm terrified.
I think the Raiders should join Tampa Bay and the Cardinals in this quiet quitting trend. Run Jimmy Garoppolo out there. He's going to get hurt. He's already hurt. He's going to get hurt, and then let Aiden O'Connell play and let the pieces fall where they may. That's what Houston did last year, and they wound up with C.J. Stroud. Then they made a dumb trade, but that's a different conversation. Right. And we only know of Drake May and Caleb Williams. Now there's going to be other quarterbacks to surface in this class. So I think Michael Mayer is going to be fine. And you know what?
Is Drake May definitely the number two?
I think he's the two now. For now.
For now, but there's no chance that May would overtake Caleb Williams, right?
Lord, no. Now, Caleb Williams is not of the John Elway, Andrew Luck, maybe not even Trevor Lawrence level generational quarterback, but he's in that mix. If he's in that top 5 all-time prospects, I will not be surprised. So I would get in there, but you know what? Tom Brady, we joke. I think he's the insulating factor for Josh McDaniels. They were boys. They were boys going clear back, 15, 20 years in New England? And now all of a sudden Tom has some input upstairs? I think Josh McDaniel may be safe, and that's good for Michael Mayer. Why? We've seen Josh McDaniels build an offense around a tight end, a really dominant tight end. Maybe you've heard of him, kids. His name's Rob Gronkowski. Now, don't hear what we're not saying. We're not saying Michael Mayer equals Gronk. We're saying that if anyone could make Michael Mayer Gronk, it would be Josh McDaniel.
Yeah,
so
actually, you know what we should
this
do?
Feels bad. He's sliding over.
We should talk to Tom about this. Hey, Tom. Hey, guys. Tom, what should the Raiders do this year? They can't win. They're almost guaranteed to finish last in the division. Lose as many games as possible. So you're gonna give the green light to tank to Josh McDaniels, and he's gonna be safe, and they're gonna go roll out Aiden O'Connell, maybe for the whole season. You got it. I'm a winner. We need to build a champion, and that's how you do it. Thanks, Tom. All right, so that's probably, I think, the answer. You've had so many insightful remarks today. I think it's setting like a record. I'm like slapping my forehead, going, "Yeah, that makes sense. They absolutely should tank," and Tom Brady gives the necessary political cover to make it happen. Why not?
It only makes sense. You're not going to win the AFC West with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, and even an improved like Russell Wilson. We're down on Russell Wilson, but he did get an infusion of talent and a head coach. So you're not beating any of those 3 teams. You're locked into 4th unless you get your own difference maker.
Don't forget, Russell Wilson put up 25 fantasy points a game once they changed the offensive coordinator.
Andy finished as like the QB 15 on the season. That was his worst of his career. And you're giving him Sean Payton, who had historically top 5 offense after top 5 offense after top 5 offense. And you added Marvin Mims. So we can go down a Denver road, but this is just a long way of saying you got to get out of the Jimmy Garoppolo. I've lived this. I'm in Indianapolis. I'm a Colts fan. I've lived this since Andrew Luck retired, from Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz. And you know what? We finally did the thing. We sucked, and we brought in Matt Ryan. He was no longer Matt Ryan. We sucked, and now we got Anthony Richardson, and we have hope. We have a young guy. We have hope. Raiders, as long as you live in this purgatory, it's one of your best words, as long as you live in this purgatory of quarterback carousels, you're never going to get where you want to be. Rip the Band-Aid off, play O'Connell, suck, get the QB, move on down the road.
What the hell is going on with Alvin Kamara? Is he going to play?
I've seen so many suspensions happen during camp that I am not holding out hope. I'm not moving off of Kamara. I'm not moving on Kamara.
They're just waiting for no reason.
I am just continuing to let the people in my league give me late Kendre Miller for no real reason, by the way. No, and if you best ball players like Theo and Billy and those guys that play high end best ball, go ahead and take a little cheap Jamal Williams late. But I'm happy to let someone else take the hand grenade that is Alvin Kamara. Because if he doesn't get suspended to start the season, maybe they suspend him week 1. It's probably going to be 10 games. That's my guess, is 10 games, because it's violence caught on camera. Now, it was against another man versus Kareem Hunt, violence caught on camera versus a woman. But 10 games is what feels right. And if he gets 10 games, man, fire up Jamal Williams. But I'm super pumped for Kendre Miller. My second most owned rookie in all of my leagues today. I have more Kendre Miller besides Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson, number 1, Kendre Miller, number 2. Love that.
Kendre Miller, Cody confirmed he can catch passes.
I've had a lot of people confirm that. I've had Garrett Price on the show visiting. I've had Bruce Mattson. I've had a lot of great guests on this season talking rookies. And I love that wisdom of crowds. I have yet to hear one bad negative, like severe negative, about a Kendre Miller. Everybody likes him. Everybody sees the talent. Everybody sees the upside. Cody mentions that he can catch passes. Keep thinking that Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara are a barrier for Kendre Miller. I will take all of it. Thank you very much. Just keep pushing it my way. I'll keep hitting the draft button. Thank you very much.
given how much chaos we're going to see with the running back position in the next couple of years, you might as well lock in these young guys that we know have the stability of the draft capital, whether it's Miller, third round, Spears, third round, Roschon, fourth round. We know there's been some organizational commitment to these value backs. They have all-purpose skill sets, or they're super fast, like Kendre Miller, or they're super electric in the passing game, like Tajay Spears. Why not? Right? They've had the recent investment from their organization. They're going to be there for 4 years, and that's how you can sidestep the chaos of the running back position and lock in great value. Those are the three guys. Those are the three running backs I really want. And of course, once you get later on, Evan Hull and Dwayne McBride. What about Evan Hull, though? I mean, Evan Hull to me is very attractive. His profile on playerprofiler.com is that he's that one guy that he takes your breath away when you pull him up on playerprofiler.com. You're like, oh, he's that athletic. Oh, he's that big. Oh, he was that productive. Oh, he was that involved in the passing game. Everything's like an oh. He's a little bit better across all the key metrics than you might have expected. And certainly I didn't expect that. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was impressive. He wasn't Spears by any stretch, but he was probably the next best guy. I thought he was better than Eric Gray. He's the 10th best athlete at the running back position in this class. He is 210 pounds. He's 1 pound lighter than Tank Bigsby. Let that sink in. He's 1 pound lighter than Tank Bigsby, and he runs a 4.47, 80th percentile burst, 80th percentile agility, 60 catches in a season. Wow. Right? Why not this guy? He's on the Colts. If you're a Colts fan, you live in Indianapolis, you must be impressed.
He's bigger, better Nyheim Hines. He's better than Nyheim Hines. I believe I'm going to call my shot. I'm going to call a shot later in the show, but I'm going to call a shot. By the time Player Profiler World hear me, by the time 2023 ends, the Podfather will talk about Evan Hull in the same light and breath as he talks about Kenneth Gainwell in Philadelphia. This will be your guy. I don't know that it so much ties in that you guys share an alma mater in college. I don't know. I just know that this will be your guy. I know this because I know it's my gut call. But as a Colts fan, I love it because I don't think they'll let Jonathan Taylor walk because you can afford to re-sign your own guys when you have a rookie quarterback.
Of those free agents that you listed, the one guy I was like, he's not going anywhere.
Even if you franchise tag
him for Jonathan Taylor,
because you got the rookie QB. But this is the kind of guy that's going to be sneaky. I think he's going to vanquish Deion Jackson. Zach Moss he's the guy. He's the guy that if we look up, talk about dusty and not a great athlete, but this is the guy that if we look back a year from now that said this was the value running back because he's always one play away from being a play away.
That's right. Yeah. Twisted ankle. JT misses a game. It's not a serious ankle injury, everybody. It's just a moderate ankle injury, misses a game. And then Evan Hull goes nuclear, puts up 30 fantasy points in that game somehow, and then everybody wants him in Dynasty. Oh, do you know Jonathan Taylor's going to be a free agent? Like, this is months from now. All these conversations will be happening. We are predicting this months ahead of time. He's going to get a start. He's going to put up a huge game. And then everybody's going to want him in Dynasty. Suddenly, Jonathan Taylor's contract's going to be a conversation point. It's going to be like, hey, guys, we were having this conversation in May. So
correct. Because what's the other corollary? Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who's going to be offensive architect, who architected that offense in Philadelphia. You just see this narrative right in itself. If you're getting a Hull late in your rookie drafts, you are giving yourself a lottery ticket that will pay dividends that just about no other rookie in this class could give you. And you're banking on athleticism. So I agree with you 100% on Hull.
What about the tight ends? Who's your most roster to the tight ends? Is it Mayer or are you trying to get more value? Are you going after someone more like Musgrave?
I like Musgrave. Now I listened to a show of yours and you talked about how dominant Mayer was. So all of a sudden I just became just a little bit more of a Mayer guy, just a little bit more. Then that Tom Brady corollary, then that Josh McDaniels corollary, and I like the path. I do like Musgrave. They brought in Tucker Kraft like at pick 78, which made no sense. I didn't get that one bit. So I don't know what a Jordan Love led offense looks like. I want to like Luke Musgrave. We did the Sonic Truth mock draft with all the guys, and someone told us he was a 5-sport state level athlete in Oregon. I
Oh
love
yeah,
the guy. He's the third most athletic tight end in the tight end class.
yeah.
I love him. I
He's kind of
want
like
more.
Michael Wilson in that he missed a lot of games with injury, but
It's
physically impressive, really impressive Senior Bowl. He's a guy you can talk yourself into pretty easily.
He's a great guy. Again, we mentioned earlier, like you got an Evan Ingram or like maybe like a Darren Waller, and you're needing a stash. He's the perfect guy in a tight end premium to just put on your taxi squad for a year, see what shakes out in Green Bay with Kraft, and is Jordan Love any good? I don't know. How's he look in this offense? And because he could easily be that guy. So I think he's got the potential. He's like a George Kittle level athlete. He's a big dude. He was a wrestler. He was like a skier. He did all these crazy things.
Dude.
So if he's the one who breaks out late, I'm not going to be
Not
surprised.
at all surprised.
But
I think he was a second round pick.
he was
He
the
wasn't even like a fifth rounder like Kittle. Like
46 maybe 46.
he did
41?
nothing. Like he had 100-something yards in a game and a half, and yet the NFL's drafting him in round 2. Think about that.
It is wild. I'm pulling him up. Yeah, he went 211. He was the 11th pick. So he was the 31. He was the 42nd pick off the board.
That's
42nd pick.
They love him. He's
So
gonna
this
be
is the
good.
young offense. This is the young nucleus, man. We're going to talk about Jaden Reed. There's Jaden Reed. You got Christian Watson. I'm not a Romeo Dubes guy, but whatever. You got Musgrave. You got Kraft. I love A.J. Dillon as a post-hype sleeper because Aaron Jones, that class of 2017, great. That also means old because that was 6 years ago. So you move him on down the line. You see a young nucleus being built in Green Bay, and I think Musgrave is going to be a good part of that.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon is interesting in that it's a very similar situation to Dalvin Cook with Alexander Madison, except Dillon is equivalent to Madison as a receiver. They're check down receivers, but he's so much more explosive as a runner. And they're the incumbent back sharing the backfield with them is in a very similar situation. So Dillon should be getting even more hype in Dynasty but Madison, because there's all this talk about Dalvin Cook potentially getting moved, that's where the focus is. I haven't heard anyone talk about A.J. Dillon at all.
Now, I believe he's a pending free agent as well, but I don't care. Because how do you protect a young quarterback? You run the ball more. It's a pretty simple formula. We've seen it in a lot of teams. And A.J. Dillon last year played 50% snap share. People probably don't realize that. He disappointed you last year because he was supposed to be the man last year. You're getting a big A.J. Dillon discount, not only in redraft and seasonal leagues, but you're getting that discount in Dynasty as well. And if you're going to be investing, why not invest in a guy that's not going to cost you as much so you can spend more at the wide receiver position where you should be building?
Talk about a guy who's not going anywhere. I mean, that guy's the Packers restructured Aaron Jones' contract, guaranteeing he's gone. They have to release him. They have to cut him. Of course, they're going to bring back Dillon. They're not going to have no running backs, or maybe sign a running. Maybe they sign one of these running backs. I guess it's possible if Love does well that they could go after Eckler. They could go after Barkley. It's possible but if Love underwhelms and they don't make the playoffs, it's harder to see them thinking, "Oh, yeah, we got to get Derrick Henry." No, we have A.J. Dillon. This is not a need for us. We have other needs all over the place. He could survive. He could survive the running back chaos very easily, actually. Let's talk about some of these stashes. Because of the chaos, it's interesting to talk about the guys that are behind some of these free agents. Is the best stash of all for this year, is it Elijah Mitchell? For this year?
I think so. Did Christian McCaffrey happen to get magically younger? Did anyone forget that every running back, every running back that has played in the Kyle Shanahan offense has been hurt at some point or another? And at some point, do the Niners say, "Hey, we're going to limit Christian McCaffrey's carries because we need him in December and January. We don't need him in October and November." So yeah, and then Elijah Mitchell was good this time last year before they traded for Christian McCaffrey. Who were we trading the 110 for last year? I wasn't, but I heard people talking about it. We were trading up and drafting Elijah Mitchell as if he was Damian Pierce. And all of a sudden he got nerfed real quick. So I like him. I think I would put him at the head of my stashes based on the quality of the offense, the health of the guy in front of him, and just wanting to protect the guy in front of him.
I think that's fascinating that Shanahan would want to preserve McCaffrey. And it makes sense. We have the injury finder, the 2023 injury predictions and fragility ratings are up on the injury finder app. You can go to the App Store, check it out. And lo and behold, Christian McCaffrey, he's back in the top 5, most likely to miss multiple games with injuries this year. His injury risk is top 3, actually. And why is that? Because the workload he's supposed to command, given his BMI and his overall size, is an outlier. There's very few running backs that are 200 pounds that are able to stand up and endure that kind of workload without having some injury. In the past, it's been hamstrings, it's been quads, it could be a calf injury, knee injury, ankle injury. There's so many things that could happen to him. He does what it takes to get his body ready, understood, but the physics and the physiology of playing the running back position at that size with that workload make it so that Elijah Mitchell is going to be a winner no matter what. Elijah Mitchell is either going to win because he's a premium breather back that you can actually play with standalone value, given that they're trying to wind back McCaffrey's role to preserve him, or they don't do that. He definitely goes down if they don't do that, and then Mitchell is the full-blown starter. So that's why Mitchell is a great late-round pick in seasonal leagues. Best ball on Underdog, best ball on FFPC, absolutely. Then you start to look ahead at some of these running backs that are about to they're about to be free agents. Josh Jacobs is going to be a free agent. There's a good chance he's gone. Like, he's on a bad team. So if you have a free agent on a bad team, what happens then?
Well, I think you have to look at Zamir White. He's a guy that I was big on picking up last year. I really like the talent coming out of Georgia. I like the draft capital. I think he was a 4th rounder as well, if I remember correctly. I want to see his role this year. But again, Josh Jacobs, when is Josh Jacobs going to make a business decision? To your point about being on a non-winning team, he's like, dude, I'm on a franchise tag, and I've got to look to get my last bite at this apple as a professional football player. So I'm not playing through this nagging hamstring. I'm not playing through this calf strain. I'm going to take this week off. Hey, Zamir, here you go, buddy. Knock yourself out. And that's where his opportunity to shine is. And then the Raiders, to your point, it's like, the running back's like the final piece, right? It's the piece de resistance. It's what we're going to put on because we're going to go win a Super Bowl. It's what Buffalo should have done, by the way. But no, a bad team does not do that. You don't add a running back to a bad team. So this could be Zamir White's team for a couple of years, just floating around out there, putting up 10 fantasy points a week as your RB3.
He's a Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah, oh God, I did this
4-4. Who's huge games on the biggest stage. Yes, this is absolutely a player that the NFL could turn to. It's similar draft capital to Dameon Pierce. He's a more explosive runner than Dameon Pierce. So why can't he be the Dameon Pierce of the next couple of years? It just makes perfect sense. And again, they're not going to be in a position to want to invest in running back. So I love it. I love Zamir White. I'm seeing Jerome Ford go a lot earlier lately, though.
Well, Jerome Ford was one of the guys, when you and I had our very first conversation, you and I were talking about this, and it got me digging. I do like Jerome Ford as a handcuff to Nick Chubb, but I really like, because he was on waiver wires in some of my dynasty leagues, Demetric Felton. He had 99 catches. He had 99 catches in college, and he's had 20 as a pro. Whereas Jerome Ford has not had a catch in the pros, and he caught 30 total balls in 4 years of college between Alabama and Cincinnati. So literally, if you go to your waiver wires in your dynasty leagues right now and start kicking around the name Demetric Felton, that doesn't mean that they couldn't add somebody. Cleveland fancies themselves a contender. Maybe they re-sign a Kareem Hunt. I don't know. But Dearness Johnson's in Jacksonville, and the pass catching role in this offense, it should be a pretty good offense, is Demetric Felton. So I like Ford if you can get cheap Ford, but I like Demetric Felton.
Oh, Felton.
Uh-oh.
Felton feels like a discount Evan Hull, the way you described it in terms of the role and the skill set. Yeah, he was a converted receiver. He's technically the third running back in the depth chart. This is going to be a prolific offense this year. He's going to be the only running back with a pass-catching resume. It makes sense. And the thing is, I'm in leagues that are super deep. I'm in leagues with 35 players, with like 20-plus bench spots. Like, these are the types of leagues where you got to find the Feltons. That's perfect. I actually just put him in my queue in a league where we're at the very end of a startup, and I'm like looking around. I've already got Ashton Doolin, right? I just drafted Jonnu Smith, right? Anything happens to Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith is going to have the role he had with the Titans. So he has the athletic profile and the size. The guys that went third round that have profiles we love, if they were rookies, imagine if Jonnu Smith was a rookie, we'd be talking about him. But because he washed out, the Patriots didn't get the snap share, didn't get the role he wanted. He was sharing the field with Hunter Henry. Now he's undraftable in the deepest of dynasty leagues. Hell no. So that's Felton. I forgot it. I pride myself on really knowing these depth charts, forwards and backwards. I had forgotten about Demetric Felton. That's a great one. And it kills me when news comes out about a guy I've been drafting in all these startups and trading for, looking up, is he on the waiver wire? Chuba Hubbard. Freaking Roto World just dropping a Chuba Hubbard nugget out of nowhere that the team wants him to be their satellite back. And I'm like, why did you have to mention his name? People forgot about him. They've dismissed him. They've moved on. The 2,000-yard season, the size, the all-purpose skill set, no one talks about him. Why don't mention him? Damn you. Now I got to draft him 2 rounds earlier.
Yeah, that I saw that blurb and I thought there goes value, because that's all we're looking for. We're looking for some value in these drafts, because I like Chuba. I'm an unapologetic Miles Sanders fan. I believe Miles Sanders is a better than we've seen running back. I do believe that he's not going to get the whole workload though. So even as a guy who's a fan of Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard's going to have a role.
Oh,
and again, yeah. I think I'm always looking for the Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb relationship, someone who can do a little bit of both. And we play in deep leagues. I know a lot of my leagues are start 10. I think you probably play in start 10, start 12 leagues. I think that's pretty common for us serious dynasty gamers.
Oh, yeah.
And Chuba's going to be an absolute value until RotoWire had to come along and screw it up for everybody.
They did. And the funny thing with Miles Sanders, he was top 5 in the league in rushing yards last year.
Yeah, he was like a top 10 fantasy running back. And here's a story for the audience. So you and I were in a league together years ago, the Ultimate Dynasty Podcasters League. I was going to take Miles Sanders. You traded up with somebody. I don't remember that much. You traded up in front of me and you took Miles Sanders. And that was the first time I cussed you. I cussed you because I've been a Miles Sanders fan for a long time. So he's not my truther, but you did. I saw the trade go down. And I was like, he's going to take Miles Sanders. And you took Miles Sanders.
Yeah, that was a rare trade up, but
that is for you. And
I love Miles Sanders, man. I've always loved him. I don't understand why he's not catching more passes. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I think he is a better pass catcher than he's showing. That is also one of the best run blocking offensive lines. If you wanted the sneakiest, and I said this on TikTok, if you want the sneakiest of sneaky potential NFL rushing leaders this year, it is Miles Sanders. Now, I know Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker. Yes, I get it. But given the situation, they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to have the offensive line.
I'm telling you,
it's not the craziest thing that would happen. They just signed him to by far and away the biggest deal in free agency for running backs. It's not the craziest thing.
And how do you protect a young quarterback who's like, I think you last said 5'6", 5'7"? How do you protect him? You check down. You don't run. You check down to Miles Sanders. You don't run. Don't ever want to see you run. You check down. So I think there's going to, and go look, and it's two ways. Go look at Frank Reich's historical usage pattern of running backs in the passing game, whether it was Philadelphia as the OC, whether it was Indianapolis coach and the offensive designer. There's going to be PPR value, not only for Chuba, but for Miles Sanders. This is a good offense for pass catching.
It is good. It's going to be great. And Alabama quarterbacks are trained to dump it off to the running back. Mac Jones, Bryce Young, and so forth. Joshua Kelly. He's like the last guy. Keontae Ingram, Joshua Kelly. But I go Joshua Kelly because the offense is great. They don't add any running back talent at all, which is weird. They basically telegraphed to Austin Eckler they were going to re-sign him and extend him. They gave themselves no leverage with Austin Eckler whatsoever. But Joshua Kelly's just been hanging around.
And I think he's the thunder to the lightning. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to give him that role? Again, I know people are saying, "What? It's the last year of Austin Eckler. They'll run him into the ground." Austin Eckler's not going to let Austin Eckler get ran into the ground. No. He clearly wants to. He
said it on the show that he's managing his reps. He has agency.
This is the guy that is the league winner if anything bad were to happen to Austin Eckler. So this is the guy. I like Isaiah Spiller, but not really. Mm-hmm. This is the guy. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a contract year for him, if I remember correctly as well. I think this is his 4th year in the league. Good size. He did an intro for you guys years ago. So I'm a big Joshua Kelly guy. I like him a lot because he's free.
Oh, we could run that for the show. We could intro the show with the Joshua Kelly station ID. Oh, that would be good. That would be good. I like that. We're going to do that. What about the guy behind Breece Hall? Breece Hall not going to be ready for training camp. Shocking. I love these shocking. The most obvious news item ever, right? The news would be, the breaking news would be that player X, who tore his ACL last year, is ready for camp. That's literally never happened. Okay? Never. Okay, even guys that are tearing their ACL in preseason the prior year, like J.K. Dobbins, they're still missing games, much less be ready for camp. It's like, no, I don't think Breece Hall's going to be ready for camp. No shit, right? Let's state the most obvious thing that is going to surprise nobody, but it has this whiff of news. It has this sort of aroma of news, but actually it's nothing. It's just total vapor news. But Michael Carter looks good. People remembering, Michael Carter was good. Michael Carter was the lightning to the thunder of Javonte Williams at North Carolina. He was a 4th-round pick. Michael Carter was drafted same round as the guys we've talked about already. Dameon Pierce, Zamir White. And I had that decision to make. And I was talking to Alan about it, and I was like, well, Zonovan Knight, he was getting the carries. He's like, you don't want to mess around with that. Zonovan Knight was undrafted. Michael Carter was not 100%. Michael Carter is an interesting handcuff to Breece Hall, especially coming off a torn ACL. So I was like, okay, I'm in a Dynasty League. We're in round 20, whatever it is. For whatever reason, Michael Carter's lingering around. I think it's because the Abanikanda draft pick threw people off. But remember, Abanikanda was drafted a round later than Michael Carter was. It's just we haven't seen Abanikanda in the NFL. Abanikanda hasn't got hurt in the NFL yet. So it's just the allure of the unknown of what could be with Abanikanda instead of what we know, which is super solid running back. Think like a better version of Joshua Kelly across the board. That's Michael Carter in a good way.
I'm a Michael Carter guy. Now, if Zach Wilson was still the quarterback of the Jets, we'd be talking Zonovan Knight. That would make total sense, the big body banger. But close your eyes. Not if you're driving a car and listening to this podcast, please don't close your goddamn eyes. But close your eyes if you're sitting at your desk in your office and say to yourself, self, who do I see standing in a backfield next to Aaron Rodgers? Is it Zonovan Knight and a big plotter? No. Is it Israel Abanikanda? No. It's Michael Carter. If you look just right,
oh my God, think about Abanikanda missing the block.
Oh,
right, he
yeah,
misses the pass protection, the blitz up the middle.
Yeah,
he gets Aaron Rodgers sacked.
Yeah. Yes,
potentially
that's where I'm
hurt.
going.
Do you think he's going to play after that with Aaron Rodgers?
The running back in an Aaron Rodgers offense, if it's not Breece Hall, is Michael Carter. He'll look just like Aaron Jones to a degree, best comparable to Devontae Freeman from the Atlanta Falcons years ago. He's going to have sneaky value the first half of the season, just like Samaje Perine in Denver. You're giving away, and if you can maybe move him in a trade to the Breece Hall owner, what a better time to drive up prices, because this is your opportunity. But I like him. I've always been a Carter guy, and I think 2023 will be a fine year for him in just about all formats.
I think he's a great stash. I think that's the thing. You can get value, especially in like a best ball league, by just picking the winner of an ambiguous backfield situation, right? It's not ambiguous in that we know it's Breece Hall. It's ambiguous behind Breece Hall. So that's the way you get value. Like draft a Patriots running back in years past and then hope that the guy you drafted is LeGarrette Blount getting 18 touchdowns, or is Dion Lewis with like RB2 second half.
Yeah, he's got 77 career professional receptions. 77 professional career. That's pretty darn good for a guy who's been in an RBC for 2 years. Yeah, he's had 41 and 36. And now you get Aaron Rodgers. Your QB play just exponentially quadrupled 4 times, 4x'd. And now you're going to get everything Aaron Rodgers is going to run after pulling a calf in OTAs. No, he's going to check it down to guys like Michael Carter. This is a huge win for Michael Carter. And if you've got him in Dynasty, because you're going to be able to use him, you're going to be able to flip him. Yeah, no offense to Zonovan Knight. He'll be the hammer occasionally, like 3rd and 1 or whatever the hell, but give me all the Michael Carter.
Oh, yes. Now, given what we know about Aaron Rodgers, okay, another burning question. I mean, you've hit me with so many super insightful remarks, but another one that I got a couple months ago that really knocked me over was this idea that, Aaron Rodgers puts a premium on precise route running and timing, and that has never been Garrett Wilson's game. That was always Chris Olave's game, whereas Garrett Wilson is an improviser. He's an athletic improviser, and he just makes huge plays. And that's why he was actually a fit with Zach Wilson. Is it possible that he's actually not as good of a fit with Aaron Rodgers? He'll be more productive because it's the Aaron Rodgers offense, of course. But that Chris Olave actually outproduces him this year.
From a talent perspective, I would say it's 50-50, but just based off the situations, I think if you ran the 2023 season 3 times in 3 separate sims, I think Olave would win 1 out of 3. And I base that strictly based off the division they're in and the offenses that they're in. If the New Orleans Saints bully the NFC South, and they bully Tampa Bay, and they bully Carolina, and they bully Atlanta, they're not going to throw the ball as much. They threw the ball 30 times a game last year versus the Jets threw it 37 times a game. They've got to compete with Buffalo. They've got to compete with the Miami Dolphins. They're going to be in position where they're going to have to put the ball in the air a little bit more, like Michael Carter, but he's not a Breece Hall, bell cow type of guy. Just based off the volume, like 7 more attempts a game, I have to lean Wilson, but I love Chris Olave. Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback. I do believe that Derek Carr is a significant upgrade over the guys in New Orleans last year. But
Andy Dalton, yeah,
the Red Rocket,
the
Red Rocket. Yeah, Google that, kids, or don't, especially not at work.
Don't Google Red Rocket.
Definitely don't do it with image search on.
All right. It's just, so this is interesting, man. No one has taken any steam out of Olave all year. It's only been Olave love all year. And again, I love Olave. He was my wide receiver 1 last year in that rookie class. So I'm happy that everyone is so all in on board on Olave. But it is a bad division for fantasy points. It is a bad, as much if you want to talk about how great the AFC North could be for fantasy points, that's great, and it will be, including the Steelers, as you mentioned. I love that you appreciate the Steelers potentially surging as an offense all in unison. Makes perfect sense, though most fantasy gamers are overthinking that concept and are looking at the glass half empty in Pittsburgh. In the NFC South, it's the opposite, where it's every game we talked about with Carolina and all these Bijan in Atlanta. It's just all dragged into the mud. Baker Mayfield, all I hear is mud. It's just mud and muck in that division, and that will be the thing. That will be the governor on Olave ultimately. So
defensive mind.
It's not all rainbows and butterflies and lollipops.
It is not.
For Chris
There's
Olave.
a defensive-minded head coach there as well. So what's he want to do? He wants to run the ball and play defense. We're going to beat him with 21-17. It's not a dynasty party there. I still love Olave. I'm not worried about Michael Thomas. You didn't hear that out of my mouth, or anyone else. It's not a volume issue.
Thomas, yeah.
It's just the way that I see these teams winning.
No,
and how they have to win.
Makes too much sense. Things you're saying are making too much sense today. Second round, I'm assuming you're going wide receiver based on what you've talked about. So Kendre Miller's gone. You're looking at receiver. You get Jaden Reed. You get Jonathan Mingo. You get Marvin Mims. We talked about Marvin Mims, how he's in line to be a monster in 2024. How do you scout those three guys and make a decision?
Well, you just got to look at everything. You look at they're all similar draft range-ish, within 30 picks of each other. I mean, I like Frank Reich, and I think Bryce Young will be okay, but I don't want Johnny Mingo. I mean, your best case, your absolute home run, I hit my ceiling, he's T. Higgins. He's wide receiver 12 in a startup. That's the absolute best. But then you get Marvin Mims. I think he had a 2,000-yard season in high school. And I know you're saying, did he really quote high school stats? It's something. Oh, you know what? He lost Spencer Rattler. That's okay. He lost Caleb Williams. That's okay. I'll still have 2022 be my best season ever as a collegiate player. Now I get Sean Payton. Now I get Russell Wilson. You talked about Cortland Sutton getting out the door. He may be out the door before the season starts. He's been pretty disgruntled. And they got Tim Patrick there. So if they wanted to move a Sutton, maybe the loser of the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes wants in on the Cortland Sutton sweepstakes. I don't know. I just know that messaging to me, again, matters. The first pick, not the first offensive pick, not the first skill position. It was the number one guy that Sean Payton ever drafted as the leader of the Denver Broncos. He's like, this is the guy who can help Russell Wilson. It's Marvin Mims. Give me Marvin Mims. I do like Jaden Reed, but I'm so confused about outside of Christian Watson. That's why we talked about Luke Musgrave. I have no idea what's going on in Green Bay. I'm not even sure Green Bay knows what's going on in Green Bay. So for these reasons, I'll take Mims 1, Jaden Reed 2, because I do think there'll be a track to success for him. And then Mingo is just meh.
Mango?
Meh.
Johnny Mango? Is that what you're saying? Mango.
Like Johnny Mingo, like Johnny Ringo from the classic movie Tombstone, the bad guy. Like Johnny Mingo. Yeah, he's Mango. He's not even that exciting. He's very boring.
He's not exciting at all. I've seen very few receivers that are less exciting. I would push back on the T. Higgins ceiling. He does not have a T. Higgins ceiling. Just to put everything in context, everybody, I know it was a shortened season in 2020, and he was injured in 2021. Mingo in 2020, 379 yards as a sophomore. As a junior, 345 yards. T. Higgins, as a sophomore, 936 yards as a junior. 1,167 yards and 13 touchdowns. He then came out early. Mingo went back to school and put up a completely and utterly dominant 861 yards in 12 games. Wah, wah, wah. right? So they're not similar. I would say Jonathan Mingo has a Mike Williams ceiling. I know we're parsing here, but I think that I had to find a similar receiver from Clemson, of course, from Clemson. If I'm serving your comp the best I can. Just I think it needs to be a notch lower.
I completely understand. I maybe it's because I'm not as bullish on T. Higgins as the rest of the rest of the world. I think that offense is good, but it's just you're the man. You Jamar Chase 101 right now, and I don't disagree. So I like T.
Do you
Higgins.
think I had a question for Anand Nanduri on the Decision Point show you can help me with? Do you think that it's in the best interest for the Cincinnati Bengals to extend T. Higgins given the contracts they have to give out? Or do you think they should walk away and use that money, the little money they have left, on defense and offensive line?
Well, you've got to be able to score, but you've still got Tyler Boyd. You brought in Irv Smith. You got the man himself, Jamar Chase, and you can draft another wide receiver. You could bring in a wide receiver in free agency. I don't know how you can just
right.
Yeah, there's always going to be a guy. So how can you justify paying two wide receivers $20+ million? When
tough, man.
And I get it, but you got to pay Joe Burrow. You got to pay Chase. They've hit on some defensive players over the past couple of years. That their offensive line's not bad. They are going to have to make those tough decisions that the Kansas City Chiefs made when they paid Patrick Mahomes. That's why Tyreek Hill's a Miami Dolphin. So T. Higgins, now that's when his value could go up, because if T. Higgins winds up on a new team where he is the alpha, then he justifies his current ADP for me. But yeah, I don't know how you justify paying $50 million out of a $260 million salary cap to two wide receivers. It does not make sense to me.
It is going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Because T. Higgins is waiting to get paid right now. Like, he's waiting to be extended. He can be extended now. He's like, what's the holdup, everybody? We're like, you know what the holdup is, dude. So you've been in some startups lately. You want to share some of your strategy, how you've seen things play out, and whether it your ultimate plan for the draft ended up working out, or did you have to pivot? Talk to us a little bit about a startup or two you've had this year and how it played out for you.
So for me, again, most of my formats, Superflex tight end premium. Sure. I like that. Start 10 positions. That just feels like the sweet spot for me. 12 GMs in the league. That's what I like. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing an overdrafting of every running back not named Bijan Robinson. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing taking Jonathan Taylor in the second round? What are you doing taking Saquon Barkley in the second round? So if you're drafting running backs not named Bijan that early in like the first round or the second round of a startup in a 1 QB league, or like in that third and fourth round of a Superflex tight end premium, you will be rebuilding in 2 years. You will be trying to figure out what happened. All these wide receivers, whether it's at the very tippy top, it's Jamar Chase, it's Justin Jefferson. Those are the guys. If you're in the middle tiers, you need to be looking at Olave, Garrett Wilson. Those are the guys. I have been going primarily like in a quarterback. I'm not walking away without one of my top. Now you've had Jordan McNamara on. I love his thought of getting two elite quarterbacks. It's great if you can execute it well. Give me one. I have no problem having a Josh Allen and then like plugging in some other guys along the way. That's cool. I've got to have an elite QB, and I'm happy to get guys like your guy, Antonio Gibson. Love Antonio Gibson. I'm happy to get Cam Akers. I'm happy to get all of these later guys.
Rashad White, we talked about.
Rashad, that was my number one guy. And
Allen got him at the 7-10 in a draft we were at.
Well, this was like, I know you have a Patreon as well. We have a Patreon, and like in our league, they know my guys, so they take all my guys. And there was your guy. I was there like in the 5th round, and I was like, I'm not leaving this draft without a good running back I can count on. I got Rashad White. Maybe I overdrafted him. Maybe I didn't. But for me, I'm going 2 wide receivers in a 1 QB league and in like a tight end premium super flex. I'm going some combination of quarterback, tight end, wide receiver if it's tight end premium. Or basically, what I'm saying is I'm going value running back.
Yeah,
over,
I think
that's
an important note, an important tactical note. I'm looking at where I drafted a player that you like a lot, where I drafted Kendre Miller, because I'm in this draft with Theo and Allen and a bunch of guys. I was able to get Kendre Miller at the 909. That was my second running back drafted. I did draft Jahmyr Gibbs earlier.
Do you have the local law enforcement agency's phone number there in Connecticut where you reside? I'd like to call the police because getting Kendre Miller at the 909 feels like a crime of some sort. I don't know what number that would be. I know a 211 is a robbery in progress. Maybe we use that one.
Yeah, I definitely did not draft a lot of running back in this league. I'm scrolling. I was going, oh, I got Gainwell and Evan Hull.
I knew it.
Of course. I was like, who else did I get a running back? Oh, yeah, Evan Hull. Gainwell. Of course. Yeah, predictable. Very, very, very predictable. Love it. Love it. Love it. And by the way, our draft kit is launching soon. So the final draft kit is moments away. There's going to be a new section of that draft kit called the Commissioner Zone. And you are hosting a brand new show called Kiss the Ring. It's going to be a podcast on this network. It's going to be a streaming show. It's going to be monthly or twice a month, depending on the time of year. And Memphis Young is going to talk commissionership and all the things you need to know about running leagues, horror stories, success stories, making sure the leagues don't fold, how to handle orphans. I mean, you name it. You name it. Managing trades, trade voting, how to allocate draft picks, how to prevent tanking. I mean, all these things he's going to have guests on. It's going to be, I think, a super cool show that needs to be done. Whenever I listen to one of these shows that focuses on this area, because I'm a commissioner of a lot of leagues, I'm always super engaged, and I always thought it'd be fun. And then for you to talk to us and Theo about doing this and to actually pull it off, make it happen, and all those episodes will be actually in the draft kit, in the Commissioner Zone. There will be the ability to stream those shows right from the draft kit, which will be cool. But again, it'll be a podcast where we're really blessed to have you, man, host that show. It's exciting.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And Theo actually talked me into writing words. I haven't written a fantasy article of any type in like 6 years, but
Yeah.
I was asked, I was excited, and what I did was a top 10, like the 10 commandments of being a commissioner. And it's a hard job. But if you're playing Dynasty and you want to keep the league together, the kind of stuff that I covered in the article and will cover on the shows are the things that will help you, allow you. And if you have questions, it's going to be an interactive show. We're going to have a segment called Ask Memphis. We're going to do a Dynasty. We're going to do a commissioner horror stories. It's going to be very interactive. It's going to be every other Monday. It's going to be this coming Monday is the next edition, June 5th, on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Eventually be a podcast on the Player Profiler podcast channel. Check it out. I've got a special guest, and we're going to talk about all things commissioning this summer. We're going to do it twice a week. We're going to get you ready. We're going to go all the way up through August. We're going to go, because if you're drafting the weekend of Labor Day, you're a dick, because that's the last weekend of the summer. You should let your league mates have that last bastion of summership. It's the pool, it's the barbecue. Don't do a draft that weekend. That's not cool. So we're going to go all the way up through August 28th. We're going to have shows for you, and then we're going to handle once a month topics, like what would a commissioner need to talk about in his league or her league in September. We're going to do that. October, November, so on and so forth. Coordinating topics. November, if you have a trade deadline, we'll help you with that. It's just another way of the Podfather and the folks of Player Profiler allowing me to be on their airwaves and trying to help you be better commissioners and dynasty gamers.
Yeah, and we're helping you with host your podcast as well. I'm going to put a link in the description of this podcast and on the stream to subscribe to the Dynasty War Zone podcast. It's one of my most listened to podcasts out there. I love it. Memphis does a great job, and a shout out to your co-host. Want to talk a little bit about the show as well?
Sure. That one is every Sunday, 9 p.m. on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. We've been getting a lot of traction, and Matt has always said, and you guys have made him look correct again, is that it's the best, most engaged audience in fantasy and dynasty, and you're correct. The support Jerry and I have received on Sunday nights, of all nights, Sunday nights, we get tremendous viewership,
Oh, it's a good
comments. I am so grateful.
Sunday night's a good. You and Jerry, you kill it. Sunday night's a great night to do it.
You know, it's so grateful for the audience, so grateful for the engagement from the Player Profiler subscribers, because they've treated us very kindly. We've seen a bump in our own YouTube channel, the Dynasty War Zone YouTube channel. But yeah, man, you know, Jerry's a wild man. He's going to be out this coming Sunday. I'm going to have none other than Matty Kiwoom step in, and he's going to co-host this coming Sunday. Me and Matty are going to lock it up. We did it a couple of weeks ago on his show, The Game Plan. But we got a very special topic. We're going to be talking about Dynasty Karens. You know, you've heard the term Karen, like for like an angry person that wants to see the manager.
Right,
We're going to talk about Dynasty league mates, Dynasty players, NFL coaches that turn Maddie and I into Dynasty Karens. Who's going to make me want to say, maybe Arthur Smith makes me want to say, I'd like to speak to the manager of the Atlanta Falcons. I'd like to talk about your usage of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
So that's me and Maddie, man. So yeah, we're getting after it, man. But again, grateful to yourself, Theo, Billy, the guys behind the scenes, man. Seth, John, Aaron with the graphics. The whole crew's been kick ass and amazing.
Yeah, we got it dialed in now, man. It's been years. Like I said, Aaron, these guys, they make the trains run on time. We're super blessed. Give us your truther player, the guy that you have stashed in all these taxi squads.
Well, in taxi squads, my rookie truther's Will Levis. I'm sorry. I know he could be Sam Darnold. I know he could be Zach Wilson, but I also see a path to Josh Allen and to Justin Herbert type.
He is athletic. He is
Dude,
Herbert
he's
level
smart.
athletic.
He finished like second behind Bryce Young in the S2 cognition test, and he got accepted and offered scholarships to every Ivy League college in America. He's no dummy. He also got he's smart. Now, we need a good coach to wrap their arms around him and help, bring in some of that wild man. But if he does that, it would be an absolute just a windfall for guys like Traylon Burks, Chiga Okonkwo, Tajay Spears. Again, this is another start, and we're wrapping this up, I know, but as you're looking for value in your dynasty leagues, start looking at these teams that are going to be middle of the road or bad, but you see a path to success next year. Because if you get those little pockets of value now, that's how you build long-term dynasties. Because you can flip the James Robinson. That was going to be my long-term truther. I can't quit James Robinson. I'm sorry, I'm guilty. I love James Robinson.
He's going to be another year removed from the Achilles rupture. And don't forget, you also gave a hell of a truther earlier in the third running back for Cleveland, Demetric Felton.
He's not only on my taxi squads. I went back and found him on leagues that he was on waivers.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
That's what people want. They want to go look at their waivers in a deep league.
Wouldn't it be nice to go to your waivers in a deep league and say, Jesus Christ, there's the guy Matt and Memphis were talking about, Demetric Felton. There he is. I'm going to bid $7 a fab. I'm going to get him because I listen to the Mind of Mansion podcast.
Or usually you just get him for $1. That's the beauty.
Oh, I'm going to lose $6 to get a guy I want. So I'll spend $7.
That's another great tactical nugget.
It's not real money.
Another great point. Memphis, get us out of here. Give us a bold prediction for the season. Come on.
All right, Mike Gesicki, your New England Patriots. Mike Gesicki is going to be this year's Evan Ingram. I love it when people you used to work with believe in you. That's Bill O'Brien. Go look at Bill O'Brien, 2011 tight end usage with the New England Patriots. Mike Gesicki's this year's Evan Ingram, top 5 at the tight end position.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.